Alright my friends, welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we will learn about code splitting and route configuration. Instead of defining routes in line, you can create a separate configuration file to manage your routes. This approach allows for better organization and separation of code. You can define any array of route objects that specify the path, component, and any other necessary properties for each route. Then you can map over this array to render the routes dynamically. Let's see how that works. First, back in our code, let's create a route.js file. Since this is not going to be a component, we are not going to create this inside of our component folder. So inside of our source folder, rather, we're going to create the file routes.js, and this is where we are going to dynamically define our routes. So this is going to be a list of objects containing all our routes. So we say export const, and then we're going to name it app route. And this is going to be a list. Alright, before we actually define the objects, let's import all of our page components into this file. So we can simply go back to our app.js file and copy all the lazy imported components over here first. Go back to our route.js, right above our routes, then we paste that in, just like this. You can see we also need to import lazy from React. So we're just going to import lazy, and that should be from React, just like this. So we're also going to import our home component as it's not part of these. So home, we don't have a suggestion here. Import home from /component/home, just like this. Now all of our components we need are imported over here. Now let's create the routes for them. Inside of our square brackets, let's create object for them. So each route needs a path and component property. So let's define the path. We're going to start with our home page. So the path for our home page is obviously just a / because it's the index. And then the component, we're going to define the component, and we're going to set that to our home, just like this. Now we can simply copy and paste this object and modify it for each route. But before we actually do that, I want to bring something to your attention. There's one more property we need to add. If we head back to our app.js file, we have a guarded route over here, which is our auth profile route. And this route is only going to be accessible to the user if the user is authenticated. Now, if we define our routes merely by having a path and component, it's going to be difficult for us to render our guarded routes. So for that, we are going to add another property, which is requires auth. And we are going to define this in all of our routes and set it to false where it is not needed. Our home page doesn't need the user to be authenticated to display, so we are going to set that to false. And when we get to our auth profile, we are obviously going to set that to true. Now let's copy and paste this object and modify it for each of our routes. Copy, paste. I'm just going to paste like 5 of it and then change them one by one first. Now let's move to our login, /login, and that will take the login component. It doesn't require auth. Now let's go to our users page, /users, and it's going to take the users component, or not user profile. Now here's where we are going to add our auth profile component, auth profile. And this is the component that needs the user to be authenticated. So the component is auth profile, and requires auth is now going to be true. This is what I was talking about. All right, what other pages do we have? We have user profile and search user. So we're just going to say /search. I think that's what we used. That should be search user component. It doesn't require auth. And then we need like 3 more. What else? Auth profile, user profile. What was the route for the user profile we defined? Let's check that. User profile is /user. Oh, it's /user / okay, this is our user profile path. I'm just going to copy that. Where is it? Okay, yeah, just paste that in here. All right, so we just say user profile. It doesn't require authentication. What other routes? About us are not found. So here we just want about us, doesn't require authentication. And then for the last one, so the last one is going to be our not found component, and this is going to be the wildcard symbol or star. I think we've explained this before. So whenever the user goes to another page that is not defined within this, the not found component is going to display. So let's actually change that. Not found, it doesn't require authentication. All right, now we've defined all of our routes inside of this route.js file. Now let's head back to our app.js and implement this. First of all, let's import our routes. So import app routes. All right, in the routes wrapper over here, we're going to clear all the routes inside of it, and then we are going to open curly braces and use a map function to map through all of our app routes we defined in our routes.js file. So that means we're just simply going to do app routes.map, and then for each route we want to render, and in here we're going to define how each route is rendered. All right, if you recall, we have a route that is guarded, which means the user can only access that route only if the user is authenticated. I know I've said this a billion times before, so just bear with me. So now we'll start by adding a condition that checks if a route needs authentication to render, and then we'll put the logic there, and if not, we'll just display the route to the user. So just code along with me. So we say if route dot requires, if route does requires auth, and then not is logged. So we want to check if the user is not authenticated for the route that requires authentication. If that is the case, we want to return the user to the login page, just like we did before using the navigate component from React Router. All right, so if this case is true, we simply return. So we are going to return a route, and then in here we can simply pass the key property to it, and this is going to be route dot path, and then we want this to be exact, and then the path prop is going to be route dot path, just like this. And this is where we define the redirect component. If you recall, we use the navigate component to redirect the user back to the login page if the user is not authenticated for pages that require authentication. So this element prop is simply going to be our navigate component is going to replace this component, and is going to take the user to /login. Should be /, just like this. So if this condition is false, so we say else, every other route will be accessible. So simply we'll just render the rest of the route inside of our else statement. So else, we want to return. Here we define a route, and inside the route we give it a key prop of route dot path. We add the exact prop, and then the path prop is going to be route dot path, and then the element is going to be, now the element over here obviously needs a React component, so we can't just say route.component. We have to declare that as an element by itself. So here we open angle brackets, and you can see route.component, just like this. And this is how we add our routes in our element prop. All right, if we head back to our code, you can see this works perfectly for our home page. But a problem might arise when we try to get to the authenticated user profile page. You can see we have an error, set username is not a function. Let's see what this is. Back in our component, let's go to the login.js file. You can see the login component takes props set is logged and set username. And so does the auth profile.js file. This component also takes a username prop. And back in our routes, we didn't specify any prop for the route over here. We can simply pass our props inside of our elements property over here. So inside react.component, and if you also hover over it, you are going to see the props some of the components need, and that shows you that you can actually define them inside of this place. So where you have route.component, we can simply pass our props, set is logged, and that should come from set is logged, which we already defined over here. As you can see, we also need the set username and username. So we have set username, and then username will be equal to username. So when we define the props like this, whichever component needs one of them is just going to pick it up. Now let's head back to our code and see if this works now. Let's try and log in. So the username is Kolosafo and the password is 12345. If I hit submit, we have a page not found over here. Did we make a mistake in our routing? Let's go back to our route and see. Oh, the problem is that we set the path to app profile rather than auth profile. So let's change that. I'm just going to change this to auth profile, just like this. If I head back to our browser, let's refresh. Let's try and log in again. Kolosafo 12345. Submit. As you can see, everything works fine. Let's refresh our page to see if the auth profile route is still protected. So if I click the profile, we get redirected to our login page because the user is not authenticated. So that functionality still works. And again, if I log in, Kolosafo 12345, you see the page is now accessible. All right, everything seems to be working perfect. So if we head back to our code and go to our app.js, you see our code looks more robust, and whenever we want to add a new route, we can just go to our routes.js file, and then we can handle implementing that routing over here. That's a lot more convenient than having everything clustered in your app.js file. All right,